Hao and welcome back to the channel. I'm Arnold, that is the BYD Atto2 DMI, and this is a new real-life car review. And this car here may be for Chinese car manufacturing what the Honda Civic was in the 1970s for Japanese car manufacturing. A real breakthrough model that is suited for the masses. We all know that BYD is the world's largest EV manufacturer. We know the brand, they have an almost worldwide presence, but this car could be the real breakthrough to be the new Volkswagen, a car for everybody. Not only offers it great value for money, it has some very interesting technology, and it's a real well-built and real well-engineered car. And I want to start off by having a look under the hood at the very interesting DMI powertrain. I have included chapters in the video so you can skip ahead if you want. And now, roll intro. So this is BYD's DMI powertrain, a mighty interesting powertrain. And BYD has been building the DMI since 2008 when they developed this drivetrain for the very first time in their own developed F3 model. The F3 DM was the very first plug-in hybrid car that went into series productions way before Mitsubishi and Toyota did it. I want to discuss the internal combustion engine first, and this is called the Xiaoyun engine, and Xiaoyun means as much as gentle breeze, and when you look at the numbers, it's not an overwhelming, super impressive engine. 72 kilowatts, 112 newton meters of torque. But it doesn't have to be impressive because it mainly acts as a range extender, but from 80 kilometers on and upwards it engages in driving. There's a clutch in the transmission that directly connects the crankshafts to the wheels, so it does drive the car with the assist of the electric motor. Looking at the construction, I noticed that it has oil squirters to cool the piston bottoms, but also to lubricate the cylinder walls, and that's very important for reasons I'll explain in a minute. Looking at the cylinder head, they have a very steep valve angle that generates a lot of tumble when the intake stroke is going on, so the air-fuel mixture gets really well mixed. It has hydraulic cam phases, and BYD says they prefer that over electric cam phases because it's a simpler and more reliable way of adjusting the valve timing. 2 overhead camshafts, 4 valves per cylinder, and the valves are opened via roller rockers that rest on hydraulic valve lifters. So engine maintenance is minimal. It's oil changes, spark plugs, and filters. And oil changes are required every 15,000 kilometers without looking the amount of miles driven or kilometers driven by the internal combustion engine. Just every 15,000 kilometers an oil change is due, and I think that's a very good interval for this engine. What's special about this engine is the high thermal efficiency of 43%, which is crazy high and higher than any Toyota hybrid does at this moment. And they achieve that by a lot of EGR. Up to 25% of the exhaust gases are mixed into the intake air mixture. So there is a large coolant jacket on the exhaust part. It's cast in the cylinder head. It's common in many modern internal combustion engines. Then there is a secondary EGR cooler, and then it's fed into the intake. 25% of the intake air mixture is then EGR or recycled exhaust gases, and you would say that would have a real negative effect. But that seems to be the key in the high thermal efficiency because it does 2 things. One thing is it kind of heats up the exhaust gases, and you say, why would you want that? Well, cold intake gases cool down the cylinder walls and absorb a lot of heat, and that heat is then extracted from the combustion gases during the combustion stroke, and it's lost on heat soak instead of pushing down on the piston. So that's one reason that they use a lot of EGR to keep the cylinder walls warm. And the second reason is those exhaust gases are inert and they slow down the combustion, and that allows a more controlled combustion because this engine runs in Atkinson cycles, so the combustion stroke is relatively long in comparison with the compression stroke. and it gives you much more controlled combustion and a full combustion. By the way, the compression ratio is 15.5 to 1, and in the newer 5th generation that is 16 to 1 compression ratio. But then again, it's an Atkinson cycle engine and it's a relative compression ratio and not an absolute compression ratio. I think it's a very interesting technology. I've done an article on that, and I'll leave the link to a translated article in the description box. Now let's look at the DMI part, which houses the generator and the electric motor. The generator is always connected to the internal combustion engine. When this spins, the generator spins, and that's why the maximum engine speed is limited at 4500 RPM. Otherwise, the generator would go supersonic in its circumferential speed. That's the reason why they limited that. The electric motor is always connected to the wheels. It cannot be disconnected. And this engine has basically 4 operating modes. The first is EV, where the electric motor drives everything and the rest is stationary. Then you have the series hybrid, where the internal combustion engine starts. That drives the generator, feeds its power, its electricity to the power control unit that sends it to the electric motor, and it can split off to the battery, and more on battery sizes later. And then you have a series hybrid. Then there is parallel hybrid, where the internal combustion engine is engaged via the clutch to drive the wheel, and the electric motor pulls power from the battery and assists the internal combustion engine in driving. But again, that assist is the electric motor is twice as powerful as the internal combustion engine, and that really helps building up speed and the internal combustion engine maintains speed at a constant driving speed. And the last drive mode is internal combustion only, and they let the generator and the electric motor spin in such a way that they basically run resistance free. That's something when you do real high driving speeds, and the top speed of this car is limited at 180 kilometers an hour. We have to discuss battery sizes. The Atto2 DMI comes in 2 versions, active and boost. The active has a 7.4 kilowatt hour battery, which gives you an electric range of 40 kilometers. This has a larger 18 kilowatt hour battery pack that gives you an electric range on paper of 90 kilometers, but I already surpassed that on the first drive, but more on that in the drive segment. All in all, this is a very fascinating powertrain, and the way it drives, the way it's calibrated and how smooth it is really impressive. But again, more on that in the drive segment. Let's close up and have a look at the cargo area. So the rear cargo space, the trunk doesn't open via electric openers, it's manual opening only, and that's fine with me. As you can see, we have a direct view of the little box underneath the cargo floor, and that's because someone forgot to put the cargo floor back into this car. There's also another thing missing. The upper trim level, which is the boost, comes with vehicle to load. So you get a plug for your charging port, and then a sort of power strip where you can feed off electric equipment. So you can bring your air fryer and your camping seat and live the outdoor lifestyle. 425 liters of cargo space, and when you fold the rear seats down, that is 1335 liters. I will show you in a couple of shots how that cargo floor looks, minus the cargo floor. And there are some small sprockets behind here, and I do notice that we have a plastic finish for the wheel wells, where the new Dolphin G that I recently previewed had a completely carpeted cargo space. Fine with me, super practical, and look at the very wide opening. This is where you can see that BYD has put a lot of effort and thought in making this a practical car over a very stylish car. Well done. Okay, it's time to have a look in the interior, but I want to show you 3 little things that scratch the quality image of this car a little bit. Build quality is fantastic, but I noticed a few things. Starting off by this little velcroed flap that's stapled on under the seat, and if you look under there, there is actually something very smart. There is the trailer module. You have a tow hook installed. Now granted, this car can only tow 750 kilos, but if you install a tow hook, that module has to be installed, and by putting it in that location, it's very quick and easy to install. The workshop doesn't have to pull off covers in the trunk and such, but it could have done a bit more neatly. The second thing is the bezel of the rear view mirror, which is very loose as you can see, and it feels very flimsy. And the third thing is, and I can't show yet, but the lid of the glove box rattles a little bit when I drive over brick roads. Other than that, I have no complaints about this interior. The layout is very traditional, driver display, large touchscreen. There are no physical buttons. Then this car of this size, that frees up a lot of space on the center console. The boost trim level gets a wireless charger for your phone. It's a 50-watt charger, and as you can see, there are little cooling slots over there. The build quality of the interior overall is very impressive. In the boost trim level, you can choose between a black and white interior. Now this black interior is very black, but you also get this. Let me show you this very large panoramic roof. It doesn't open, only this curtain opens. That brightens up the interior quite a bit. But you can also get it in a white interior, and that really gives a real classy impression. I think it's quite stylish. Now let's have a look at the dashboard first. So over there is a little spy camera, and Ursula von der Leyen lives in there because the European made it mandatory for European cars to have a driver attention monitor. This is the driver's display, and my only complaint about this is that the lettering is really small. Maybe you can't even see it, even if I film this in 4K. There's a real tiny 5 pixel red line that indicates the fuel reserve. It's pretty hard to read. They crammed a lot of information in this driver display and could be a bit larger. And another thing that I noticed, you have separate menus on the left and on the right. Oh, now we go to Google. I didn't want to do that. But it has some readings in here that I don't understand. I don't know what LPK is. And then I switch over to the fuel consumption. Now, overall, this car has consumed in its entire lifetime almost 100 liters of fuel. The electricity consumption isn't in kilowatt hours, but in horsepower hours, a real strange conversion. But yeah, that's something that could be a bit clearer, and a different layout, different font size would be real nice, but it doesn't bother me. Um, if you look at this, I just filled up the tank, and BYD says this car has a combined range of 1,040 kilometers. So that's with a fully charged battery and a full tank. However, my battery is almost empty. The tank is full, and when I filled up, I had 1,120 kilometers of range, now almost 1,100. So that means that the fuel consumption of this car is really good. And while I'm on the subject, fuel consumption is around 4 liters per 100 kilometers. And electricity consumption, I haven't been able to figure out because of the weird standards. Center screen, what you need to know is one thing. Audio quality is really good in this car. Much better than the Harman Kardon systems in Hyundais and Kias, and much better than the JBL system in Toyotas. The standard speaker system sounds amazing. So what you need to know, when you pull down from above, there is a shortcut menu where you can switch off the lane assist. You have to confirm it, the overspeed warning, and if you want to switch off Ursula von der Leyen spying on you, you have to go to the menu and you have to go into drive and then cabin perception, and then you can switch it off and confirm it. But that's a thing, as with the overspeed warning and the lane assist, that starts every time when you restart a car. Said nice build quality, nice soft material. In the lower section, the plastics are a little bit harder. There is a cluster of physical buttons over here that also houses the start stop button, and that is the controller for the media volume, drive mode selector. Most buttons are on the steering wheel. It's very self-explanatory, nice leather steering wheel, and you can adjust, of course, the telescope, tilt it up and down. It goes really well. I didn't find it hard to find a comfortable seating position. I saw one reviewer complain very long about the quality of the seats, but I've had back surgery, I've had shoulder surgery. When I sit on a bad seat with a bad posture, my back really starts to hurt. I think these seats are very comfortable. The boost trim level, the upper trim level, gets electric adjustment on the seats, and the only thing it lacks is a tilting function for the seat. and a lumbar support, but I've done a lot of highway miles, kilometers in this car, and I find the seats very, very comfortable. What I also like about this car is the mood light, the interior lights at night. These little rings around the reading lights light up. They have a nice turquoise glow, and that same glow is in the hand grip, the door grip, in the door cards themselves. And the rear passengers, the rear doors also have that. And below here in the center console, you can see two USB-C chargers. Once you have your cable connected, leave it connected because it is pretty hard to reach. Another thing that is pretty hard to reach is the clasp for the seat belt. Every time when I put on my seat belt, look, it's pretty hard to get it in there. Once it's in. But yeah, it's a little bit, yeah, there is room for improvement over there. Other than that, no complaints about the interior. It's a real nice place to be. Let's have a look at the rear passenger comfort. BYD uses normal door handles. They're nice and flush and easy to reach for smaller children. And the doors swing open real wide. Must say that the rear doors are quite long and you have this little corner over there. So keep that in mind when you have enthusiastic children in the back that swing open the doors in a parking garage. Ingress and egress is super easy. And the one thing that stands out most to me about this car, let me raise the headrest, is the seating comfort. I have a long seat that supports my little legs all the way up to the knee. The angle of the seat itself is good, and there is adjustability for rear passengers. And as I'm seated right now behind myself, I'm 1 meter 75 centimeters. This is a real comfortable seating position, also for adults. Creature comforts. Well, we have this large sunroof that kids like. Reading lights that have this nice illumination. And currently I have the lights on. Not sure how well this shows on camera, but as said, these rings are also illuminated. Center vent and two USB-C outlets. There is no armrest here. They could have added that. That's something that I would like to see with a couple of cup holders. But seating comfort in the back for adults and children is great. Now let's do the mandatory window test. There you are. Nice large windows that almost sink all the way in, and this offers smaller children a good view towards the outside world. Oh, and there's a little hook for the for clothing and such, and a little map pocket behind the seat on both seats, by the way. And as you can see, I can put my feet under the driver's seat, and I think this is one of the key features, one of the more important selling points of the Atto2 is rear passenger comfort. Oh, and before I forget, there's something I always complain about. There is a pocket for your sunglasses. It's above the driver's head. Bit odd position, but at least it's there. Okay, let's drive. When I picked up this car last week, I had to figure some things out, how to switch off some beeps and bongs, and how the cruise control works. And I thought, well, it was pretty easy to get used to. And after 10 minutes or so, I hit the highway, put it on cruise control, and then I thought, oh, I can get used to this. And that describes how this car drives. It's very comfortable. The suspension setup is a little bit of a mix between Toyota Yaris Cross with a dynamic side, very nice, well-weighted steering, and the suspension setup is more like Hyundai's and Kia's. I would say call it well-rounded, and basically that's all you need to know about the way this car drives. It's very comfortable. The one thing that stands out most to me is how refined this drivetrain is. If you think that Toyota and Lexus are the benchmark for hybrid powertrains, I say you're not wrong, but this surpasses the current generation of Toyota and Lexus hybrids. That being said, there is a new generation coming up, and I'm really curious to see how that holds up. BYD uses this 1.5 liter DMI from the smallest car, that's this Atto2 DMI, all the way up to the CLU SUV, which is a CD segment SUV. All the same powertrain. Power output is different, by the way, and I haven't mentioned this in the under the hood segment. The active version gets a smaller battery pack that can discharge slower, so the system power is lower. Put the numbers in screen. and this boost trim level gets a combined power output of 212 horsepower. That's more than enough for most people. And that being said, I think the standard battery pack is also more than sufficient for most drivers. But if you want to squeeze out the most electric range, if you can charge at home, the boost version with over 90 kilometers of EV range is the one to get. Said I picked up this car last week and I had a drive from Haarlem in the Netherlands to Arnhem and covered that distance on the highway using the AC completely electric, and with that it already surpassed the brochure number of 90 kilometers EV range in reality on my very first ride. So energy efficiency, energy and fuel consumption is pretty darn good. And I think in many ways, if you compare it to the Toyota Yaris Cross, I think the Yaris Cross being a slightly lighter and smaller car will get a better fuel economy, but my fuel consumption number is around the 4 liter per 100 kilometer mark, which I find incredible. And speaking of light, the elephant in the room, in a way, is the weight of this car. As tested, it weighs 1620 kilos, whereas the active version weighs 1510 kilos. You live in a country where your road taxes are based on vehicle weight, like in the Netherlands, that's something worth considering. But for instance, if you live in Germany and you get a plug-in hybrid, you get an E on your license plate, and I do believe it comes with a tax reduction for that car. So there's that. Now, in many ways, I like to compare this car with the Toyota and Lexus products. They are the king of hybrids, but as it stands, I prefer this powertrain over the ones in the Yaris Cross and even Lexus LBX. It's much more refined, it's quieter, and that is high praise coming from a hardcore Lexus fan like myself. Now, the one thing that stands out most to me is how quiet everything is. Even when the internal combustion engine starts, it's quiet. You really have to know what to listen for before you can tell if the internal combustion engine is running or not. It's just super quiet. Currently, I have the car forced into hybrid mode. You can also force it in EV mode, but I hardly ever hear the engine. It's so quiet, it's so smooth. It's very refined, and in the other models with the same powertrain you get a higher combined system output. The torque, especially the 300 newton meters of torque, makes it much smoother, but I believe that is the same throughout the entire model range that uses this DMI powertrain. This car has nice small 17-inch wheels on the top trim level and 16-inch wheels on the lower trim levels. So this car has real nice thick sidewalls, which also aid in the ride comfort of the car. So I just merging on the merging lane, and there was another car. 2 lanes merged into one, and I wanted to give a little bit away. Just a flick of the accelerator and the car speeds forward. Really smooth acceleration. Now, that's the nice thing of this hybrid powertrain, and especially this high power version. Let's just put the car onto adaptive cruise control, and when it sees lanes and when you're on a highway, it switches into intelligent cruise control. You can preset it if you want to use the ACC over the ICC. You can do that in the menu settings. I haven't been able to figure out how to do that on the fly like in Kia Hyundai products, where you push the steering wheel button to enable the auto steer function. Then you have adaptive cruise control with auto steer, but now it starts to steer. Apparently when it picks up the lane markings, it goes into adaptive cruise control. But it would be nice to switch that on and off via a button on the steering wheel. But when it works just right. Question is, are there any downsides? Well, there are some minor quality issues, and I think if you mention it to BYD, they will implement the improved version of the mirror and that little rattle over there within a month. No, the one thing that I would like to change would to add more body colors. You only have 4 body colors. This is called Midnight Blue. It's a beautiful color. It comes without any option, but if you watch this review, you can see that all other Atto2s in reviews are in midnight blue. You have to pay extra for black, white and gray, some real dull colors, And I think it would be nice to add more color choices, because I think you will see this car a lot, and I mean a lot, out on the road. And if they're all the same color, it can get kind of boring. No, it would be nice if BYD offered more body colors, at least 8 I would say, some brighter colors, some more distinct laid back colors, and some options for wheels and some striping or such, some details to personalize your car more. At least you can find your own car on the parking lot. That's basically it. I have very little complaints about this car. That being said, I want to wrap up this real life car review and head over to the middle of nowhere for my final thoughts. So see you in a second. Now, usually when I end up here, I know what to say in my final thoughts, but I really had to gather my thoughts this time because I genuinely like this car, really enthusiastic about it, as you may have gathered. And I don't want to come across as a car salesman. I mean, no one pays me to make this video, and I make very little off of the YouTube channel. But this is a car that I genuinely can highly recommend. In this segment with this powertrain, it is superior to the 3-cylinder Toyota hybrid powertrain that I regard as the king of hybrids. This is much more refined. And if you look at the value for money, the technology on board that you get, the practicality, it is slightly larger than its competitors, and you get a lot of car for your money. So yeah, I can highly recommend this car. If you look at the drive characteristics, it's not a fun and engaging car to drive, and its appearance, I didn't discuss design, you guys, you can form your own opinion on that. Um, it may not be a car that's really exciting to look at and to drive, but it's such a pleasure to drive. It may not be the car that you want, but for 90% of the people, this is the car that you need. Yeah, and in this day and age, if you have to pay for it yourself, yeah, you don't want a car that's fun to drive, but you want a car that's fun to own. And to me, this is it, and I think this car will be a car that you see a lot of on the road. The real big breakthrough for Chinese car manufacturers, and BYD in specific. They are already the world's largest EV builder, and I think this will be the next step in their sales success. Fantastic car, can't say anything other about it. Anyway, that's it for this real life car review, and I do hope you liked following me along. One thing, if you consider buying this car and you go test drive it, bring your family and let me know what you think and what your family thinks of this car. I'm really interested to hear that. So let me know down below in the comment section. As said, that's it for this real life car review. I hope you liked following me along. If you did, let me know by giving me a like, subscribe to my channel, and if you have any questions or constructive feedback, let me know down below in the comment section. And if you want to help support this channel, this is a one-man show paid for by myself. You can buy me a coffee. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you on the next one. Bye.